Yes. You too.
Let's just let everybody in and we can get started.
Rabbi, my son-in-law would like to know what time the fast ends.
Why is he fasting?
Because he couldn't go to shul or anything, so for his son's firstborn.
So it's probably until about 20 to 7.
Thank you very much.
Something like that.
Okay, I'll check it in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Sheila.
I want to wish everybody a Chag Sameach and kosher Pesach to all of our youth.
Thank you. To all of you and from all of us, and a good Yom Tov. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Somebody waiting. Let's just see there. Waiting room 1. In the meeting waiting room. Admit. Okay. Right. So welcome everybody and a good Erev Pesach to you. Just a very, very quick overview and a quick rundown of the things that you need to bear in mind in case you don't know already. Today, as was already mentioned, is the Tainis B'chorim. It's the fast of the firstborn. Most firstborn, if they can get to shul, they have heard a siyum this morning and therefore have taken away the necessity of the fast. Tonight, the next thing on the agenda is Bedikat Chametz. We've got to search for Chametz tonight. We started from 20 to 7 onwards. Should be done at night. We should go around. We should find the 10 pieces of Chametz. We put them away. We keep them in a safe place where they're not going to be touched by kids or animals or anything else. And that is kept until the burning of the Chametz, which is going to take place tomorrow. Sorry, yes, Roz? No?
Have to be bread. Can it be any chametz? I haven't kept bread out.
It should preferably be something that actually qualifies as chametz. You can't use a box of sweeties. You know what I mean?
No. A biscuit or a
That's
cracker.
Fine. That's fine. It's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
It should be real chametz and not just made with chametz things. You know.
No.
Okay. All right.
If there's a bonus, approve.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we check for the chametz tonight. We keep it set aside so that it's not damaged in any way and it's not disappearing in any way. And that's kept for the burning of the chametz, which takes place tomorrow. By tomorrow morning, you have to have sold your chametz, and then at approximately 10 o'clock, you burn the chametz that you found, the chametz that you collected. It is most peculiar for this year because we burn the chametz and then we're still allowed to eat chametz. Usually that means it's over. We can still eat chametz, so we can still eat chametz on Friday. However, by the time Shabbos comes in, your house has to be completely Pesachdik. You cannot do anything as far as cleaning or packing away dishes or doing any of that stuff on Shabbat itself. So the time Shabbos starts, your house has to be kosher for Pesach. However, for Friday night and for Shabbos morning, you need to make hamotzi. And we can't make hamotzi on matzah because we're not allowed to eat matzah because it's the mainstay of the Seder and we don't eat matzah. So you have to eat challah or bread or pita or whatever. So we've got to do that. That is done on Friday night and on Shabbat morning. That is done by making hamotzi, so preferably have small rolls that you can consume and completely consume them. And let the crumbs drop in your garden. Eat it outside. Make sure that the crumbs are not brought inside your house, and all the food that you're serving for Shabbos has to be kosher for Pesach. You don't have the option, by the way, somebody asked me, can't you have a few l'chaims on Friday night, drink some whiskey? The problem is the leftover, you can't wash up. And the stuff that's left over, your house has got to be Pesachdik. whatever's left over is chametz. There's not a way to do it. So watchword here: whole house and everything kosher for Pesach for Shabbos. By the time Shabbos arrives, everything is there. Your meals that you have on Shabbos, kosher for Pesach. You cannot eat chametz inside your house. You're eating outside, just wash for hamotzi. Let the crumbs drop outside. Anything that's left over should be flushed down the toilet. Unfortunately, it sounds terrible, but that is the only way that you can actually get rid of it. You can give it to a goy, so you could give it to your maid or your gardener, but you're not allowed to actually hand it to them. I don't know if you know that. You're not allowed to actually hand it to them. If they take it and they remove it from your property before 10:30, 10:15, whatever it is on Shabbos morning, that's okay. But otherwise, flush it and get rid of it and get it done. If you're eating outside with those challahs, with those bread rolls, whatever it is, use like a tissue that you can flush as well. You're not going to be able to flush down your toilet a paper plate. It's not going to be good for your toilet. It's not going to be good for your plumbing. And you're going to create all sorts of problems for yourself for the first day of Pesach that you don't want to have. So make sure that you get rid of all that by the latest 10 o'clock, or I think it's 10:15 actually, 10:15 on Shabbat morning. You can then carry on eating your Shabbos meal for as long as you want to. But traditionally on Erev Pesach, we don't eat anything that's the mainstays of the Seder. So that applies on Shabbos as well. We don't eat matzah. We do drink wine because it's part of Kiddush. We don't eat matzah. We don't eat maror. We don't eat any of the things that are contained in the charoset, apples and nuts and whatever else you put into the charoset. So the things that are on the Seder plate, we avoid. So that's more or less the rundown for making this Pesach different from all other Pesachs. Yes, Roz, another question. Let's just see here.
Sorry, Rabbi.
That's okay. Go ahead. No, I don't know what happened. I don't know how this is working.
Wait, Kiddush first?
Sorry, you need to repeat the question. We didn't hear it.
Okay. Do you have to make Kiddush before you eat your bread on Shabbos day?
Yes. So the whole idea now, so Shabbos morning, shuls will start very early. People will go to shul at 7 o'clock, the latest, so that you can be home by 9, so that you can finish having had Kiddush and Hamotzi by 9:30. If you really want to, you can bench at 10:15, and you've got from 10:15 till 6 o'clock when you need to daven mincha. You've got a nice long Shabbos day shlof. You can't even call it the Shabbos afternoon shlof. It's a whole day that you have to relax and be fresh for the Seder. Now, also note, and I know that I'm talking to a group of ladies, and this is going to be the toughest thing in the world, I think. You cannot do anything on Shabbos for the Seder. You can't set the table. You can't put things in place. You can't tidy the house even for later on. And you certainly cannot do any cooking, obviously, because of Shabbos. You can't do any cutting or preparing or grating or mixing salt water. You cannot do any of that stuff on Shabbat. Any of the preparations for the Seder either have to be done before Shabbos or they have to be done after Shabbos. Shabbos itself, none of that stuff is allowed to be done. So you get this incredible day off of a beautiful Shabbos coming just before the Sedorim, which is most unusual and is quite incredible that we have this opportunity this year. Are there any other questions that people would like to know on this before we move on to a couple of thoughts for Pesach and for the Shabbos Pesach? Anybody want to ask anything? Let's just see if we can unmute everybody. You could unmute yourself if you just unmute yourself, and if you want to speak, just unmute yourself, Roz. No, we're not hearing you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rabbi, so now you make Kiddush, you make Hamotzi. Do you bench? And can you eat your lunch later?
Yes. So it's preferable that you should bench after you finish the hamotzi. However, they have said that if you made the hamotzi and then you continue your meal inside, you've got to remember that after you finish the hamotzi and you've gotten rid of the chametz once and for all, you need to say the kol chamira. You need to say the nullification that we usually say at the time of the burning of the chametz. That needs to be said by about 10:30 latest on Shabbos morning. So on Shabbos morning, you're just going to say that once you've finished.
After you've had your
hamotzi.
Yeah,
you can bench then if you want to, or you can bench later after the meal. And but you can't extend it. You can't say, well, we're going to sit and have a shlof for 3 hours and then have the meal at lunchtime. Remember, your hamotzi has to be coupled with eating your meal in order to bench. So you can either bench after that or you can bench later.
Thank you.
Is that clear? Anybody else want to ask anything? Okay. So let's just think about this. Shabbos itself, when we make Kiddush on Shabbos, one of the things that we say is that it is Zeicher Liyetziat Mitzrayim, that it remembers Shabbos, that we're making Kiddush and we remember as a memory the getting out of Egypt. We do not say on Shabbos, in our Kiddush, we don't say Zeicher L'Maaseh Bereshit. You know, if you were to think about why is it that we celebrate Shabbos, and we take a look at Shabbos itself, the reason why we think, or we always have in our minds, why we celebrate Shabbos is Hashem created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day he rested, and that's why we celebrate Shabbos. So we should perhaps rather be saying in our Kiddush that we're making this Kiddush and we're doing it Zeicher L'Maaseh Bereshit. It's remembering the creation of the world. That's why we have Shabbos. But that's not what we say. We say it's Zeicher Liyetziat Mitzrayim. Think about it on Friday night when Kiddush is made. That's what we say. Zeicher Liyetziat Mitzrayim, remembering the getting out of Egypt. How does Shabbos remember the getting out of Egypt? So when we think about that statement and we think about the fact that it is Kiddush and Shabbos, we take a look at what actually happened when we got out of Egypt. Or perhaps let's look at what happened while we were in Egypt. When we were in Egypt and when we were slaves to Pharaoh, Pharaoh didn't care whether it was Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. We had to work every day. You know, it often strikes one, I think, when you think about the things that are written, for instance, of the Holocaust, people in the camps, there was no concept of Shabbos there. Why? Because they had to work every single day. They were forced to work, and they probably Dafka made them work even more on Shabbos because they knew that it was Shabbos, and they wanted the Jews to know that there's no such thing as Shabbos when it comes to a concentration camp. So yes, the Jews used to sneak away and try and make Kiddush, or try and make Hamotzi, try and mark it in some way, but there was no opportunity to keep Shabbos. Now we had that in Mitzrayim. When we were in Egypt, we had to keep everything. We had to work every day, and we weren't allowed to keep anything. Shabbos was not Shabbos. When we got out of Egypt, we reclaimed Shabbos. In fact, we're told that Hashem said, I dafka want you to go out of your way now to keep Shabbos. And most of the design of Shabbos came after we got out of Egypt. Remember, the first thing that happened when we got out of Egypt, when we came to a place called Morah, where the water was bitter, there Hashem told us, really, now start keeping Shabbos. Why? You've got to know, you've got to know that Shabbos is always going to be a mark of the fact that you got out of Egypt. Not about the creation, but about the fact that you got out of Egypt. That we can say that Hashem is in charge and he has told us that's a certain day on which we don't work. And that overrules the Egyptians and the Germans and the anybody else who ever made us work on Shabbos. God is all powerful. Our Shabbos takes precedence over all of these things. And so we keep Shabbos predominantly to remember the getting out of Egypt. Now, when we have this lineup of Shabbos coming just before the two Sidorim and just before the advent of Pesach, and in fact, yes, people are probably moaning a little bit because it turns out that this year, in fact, we have to eat Pesach Dika foods for 9 days instead of 8. You know, in Israel, they always laugh at us because on the 8th day of Pesach, they're already into chametz. You know, they're having their pizzas and their hamburgers and so on. And we're suffering with a matzah still. But here we've got 9 days. Yes, it's not 9 days of matzah. It's only 8 days of matzah, but it's 9 days of Pesach Dika foods. And you'll agree the Pesach Dika foods all taste different and they smell different. You can tell exactly the smells of Pesach when you walk into the house, and it's completely different, right? So we've got this year of an extra day of Pesach, of the 9th day of Pesach, or the one day before, really, when we keeping the Shabbos. But Shabbos itself is not yet Pesach, it's Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach usually is in a little bit of the throes of Pesach, because it was on Erev Pesach that the actual offering was brought. That was done on Erev Pesach, and then of course we ate the offering. It was shared amongst the people in the on the night of Pesach, the night of the Leil Seder, the night of the Seder, right? So Shabbos has this incredible and powerful springboard into Pesach in a very, very meaningful and beautiful way this year. If we think about the power of Pesach, the power of Pesach is incredible. It's all about redemption. Shabbos has a similar concept of redemption. We were redeemed from Egypt. We now could keep Shabbos in a proper way. We can observe our Yiddishkeit, our religion, and we're redeemed from the things. Remember, the word Mitzrayim, Egypt, is the same as the word Meitzarim, which means limitations. We're going out of the limits. Out of the limits on Shabbos means that we are no longer bound by the rules and regulations of work and of our cell phones and of our televisions and all the instruments that surround us and kind of box us in and make us feel very, very, while we think it's very liberating, it's actually very limiting. We're limited with all of those things. Shabbos here is an opportunity for us actually to, in a way, taste freedom before we actually get to the Chag, to the festival of freedom. So by the time we arrive at the Seder this year, we have done it coming through a Shabbat, a Shabbos, where we've had some form of liberation, some kind of a freedom, some kind of a feeling of being in that state that is the best way to prepare us for the Sedorim, the best way to prepare us for the Pesach that lies ahead. It is the parsha that we read now. It's also called, by the way, Shabbat Hagadol. Although this Shabbos, it's like a strange thing. There's always this interesting thing about Shabbat Hagadol. Shabbat Hagadol, Shabbos Hagadol, is called the Big Shabbos. That's this coming Shabbos. Why is it the Big Shabbos? It's the Big Shabbos because it was actually on the Shabbos before we quit Egypt that the whole revolution actually began. It was on this Shabbos that the firstborn of Egypt got wind of the fact that they were going to be destroyed, and they started a protest. There were protests with placards and campaigns and so on. Don't let my people go. That wasn't what they campaigned. They campaigned. Get rid of the Jews. And the reason that they did that was because they got wind of the fact that they were going to be massacred, that they were going to be destroyed in the death of the firstborn in the last plague. They protested, I guess, around Pharaoh's palace and all the public buildings. They made a big protest. And the police started, they didn't fire rubber bullets, but I guess they started shooting at them with bows and arrows and all sorts of other stuff and charges with chariots. And all of that happened. And many, many people died. There was a great protest and a backlash from the authorities at this protest. And that all happened on the Shabbos before we got out of Egypt. And they said that this was, now the people started getting wind of the fact that everything was changing. Yeah, this protest and people saying now you must let the Jews go, etc., etc., etc. This was the beginning of the end of our stay in Egypt. It was Gadol. It was the big miracle started actually on the Shabbos before we got out of Egypt. But in addition to that, this Shabbos is known as the Gadol, yet we kind of are racing through the davening. Everything is going to be quick. And usually, this Shabbos, it says it's the Gadol, the great people. By the way, this is written in Halacha. It says the great people who's supposed to be the rabbis, the rabbinical people in your community, are supposed to give a big drosha. They're supposed to give a drosha Gadol, a big drosha on the Shabbos, telling everybody about, isn't that exciting, right? Telling everybody about what you've got to know over Pesach, because the laws of Pesach are complicated and we're not used to it, and it's very unusual. And anything that was kosher today cannot be consumed on Pesach. It doesn't mean that it's okay to be consumed just because it's got a kosher stamp. It's got to say kosher for Pesach. It's got to be something exceptional, something unusual, something different. So while we move into that realm, people need to know, and people have their questions, and a rabbi gets more shilas and more questions in the days leading up to Pesach than at any other time during the year. Why? Because he didn't want to do this properly. They want to keep it properly. They want to make sure that everything is right and correct and kosher, etc., etc., etc. So the rabbis used to give a big drosha on the Shabbos. On this particular setup, the rabbi's drosha, in case you missed it, was supposed to be last week. Last week was the drosha, but this week is like a denuded Shabbat HaGadol. And on the Shabbat HaGadol, the only thing that we do that is similar to all the other Shabbat HaGadols is at Mincha time, we say part of the Haggadah, even though it is just before we're going to say the Haggadah again at the Seder. But otherwise, it's kind of a minimized Shabbos in a way. But if we think about it, we have so much time on our hands on the Shabbos to really contemplate what Yetziat Mitzrayim was all about. To think about what we're experiencing on a Shabbos, of that liberty, of that freedom, of not being bound to our workplaces, and not being bound to our vehicles, and not being bound to our cell phones, and being taken completely out of the framework of the bondage, perhaps, that we're in at all of these times. And when we arrive at the Seder, kind of, in a way, already liberated. We are now going to go through the motions of the Seder and sort of trying to experience freedom, but we come into it with a taste of freedom. We come into it not with a taste of bondage, but with a taste of freedom, with a taste of liberty. Now, which one is better? Which one do you prefer? At our Pesach Seder, we always sing a song called The Four Sons Are We. You want me to sing it for you? I'll sing it for you. It's a short little song. When we were kids, we had a record. My father had a record. There was a company called Menorah Records that used to put out children's records in those days. Those long playing LPs. And this is the song. How does it goes like this? It says, "Four sons are we, we're one family. Listen and learn how we think differently. Four sons are we, we're one family. Listen and learn how we think differently. The wise son am I ask how and why. My goal is to learn and apply. The words of our sages live down through the ages, the source of our wisdom and pride. This is the way a son ought to be, setting examples for you and for me. Four sons are we, we're one family. Listen and learn how we think differently. I don't like to study. Who wants to be good? I don't care if I'm called wicked son. Who needs all this learning? I'm sick of page turning. I'd rather be bad and have fun. Don't learn from him, he'll lead you astray. What can you learn from what he has to say? Four sons are we, we're one family. Listen and learn how we think differently. And then the last two are we. In this family, I'm simple. I never ask why. What's all this confusion? Explain what you're doing. They don't understand, that's their cry. Four sons are they, each one had his say. Now you decide which one thinks the best way. Four sons are they, each one had his say. Now you decide which one thinks the best way. Round of applause. Shkaya, thank you. Yeah, isn't that good? Okay, so the only thing is, now you decide which one thinks the best way. Which is the better way to go into Pesach? You'll decide. You'll let us know. Once Pesach is not done and dusted, that's all about chametz. But once Pesach is over, and once we've gotten over the matzah, and the stomach aches, I guess, that you maybe get from the Pesach foods and the matzah and the mortar and the charosis and the wine, etc. We'll think about and we'll decide which is the better way. Which is the better way to go into Pesach? With a Shabbos to taste freedom, or with a hard day to kind of really feel like you're coming out of bondage? And I guess it's a slightly different mindset. We are in a different mindset. We're going into this Pesach with more of a flavor of what the freedom, what the liberation, what the times of the Beis Hamikdash and Mashiach will actually taste like, what they'll all really be about, because of this unusual setup of Shabbos coming before Pesach. We need to remember and to reiterate, nothing can be done on Shabbos. You can't turn it into a day of bondage. Nothing can be done on Shabbos to prepare for your Sedorim. I guess the ladies are all breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, because this year, of course, you don't have, I guess, don't have big tables with lots of guests, etc., to have to set up anyway because of all the COVID regulations and so on. But be that as it may, let's have a fantastic Shabbos. Let's have a fantastic Yom Tov, a great Pesach. I want to wish you all a Chag Kasher V'Sameach. May it be a happy and a kosher Pesach, and may it truly be that as we taste the liberation, the freedom on this Shabbos, and we carry it through into the bigger freedom, in the bigger liberation that we're going to feel on Pesach, that hopefully it will be like we're starting the ascent, we're climbing up the steps and getting ever closer to the ultimate Geula, the Geula Shlema, the complete redemption. As we say, Ki mei tzeischam me'eretz Mitzrayim, just like we were redeemed from Egypt, so we're going to be redeemed with the coming of Mashiach. May it be speedily in our time. And hopefully, as we say every year, but this year, hopefully it will really come true, that when we say Lashona haba b'Yerushalayim, that in the year that comes, and the year that comes is this coming Pesach, please God, we should be in Yerushalayim, we should be celebrating Pesach properly, with the Korban Pesach and with everybody there in the way that this Chag actually ought to be and should be. So have a great Yom Tov, a great Pesach. Wish everybody well. We look forward to, I don't think we will have a shir next week, because it's Chol HaMoed and a little bit, everybody is a little bit all over the place with the advent then of the last days of Pesach coming at the end. So we'll reconvene in 2 weeks' time, week after Pesach, back together again, and we look forward to seeing you all then. Have a great one, and thank you for joining today. I know that it's a little unusual to do things so close to Pesach, but being that you're all at home, and I guess that all of those who haven't appeared on the video are actually working in their kitchens, and they didn't want to see us. They didn't want us to see exactly what they are up to. So take care and have a good one. Keep well. I apologize for the fact that there seems to be something funny here. Usually by now you can unmute yourselves and say something. But I guess those who we can see can just wave. Take care and a good Yom Tov. I don't know how to do this. Keep well.